What's up, little guy? Little fella? What's going on? I have books that I dropped. I just dropped books, new book just dropped. They're a very specific genre of book. And that genre is anti-PC, cancel culture, woke, conservative fiction. I plan to make individual videos about each of these, but I figured I'd sort of go over the Amazon listings and some of the Amazon reviews for these books before I go into each of them individually. I just think that might be fun, and going through each of these individually is going to take so much time that it would be impractical for me to do that with each one of these in this video. It would make the video 2 hours long. Hopefully there's that much content in all of these, or else I spent money for no reason. Let's start with politically correct fairy tales, or whatever this is. Politically correct fairy, parentheses, in the mythical little magic person sense, tales, and conservative rebuttal tales by Dr. Sam. Analyzing the cover, it says, all pictures and images on this cover have been carefully selected in an effort to offend absolutely no one. And obviously the joke is here that the only thing that could offend no one is just a blank cover. So we're gonna look at the Amazon listing and the reviews and such. So let's go ahead and pull up the phone, the little cellular device right here, guys. So, cell phone, cellular device. Carry them in your pockets. Who knew? Here we have the Amazon listing. So we're gonna start with the 5-star reviews, because there's only 5-star reviews and a 1-star review. That's all that there is for this book. This was a very entertaining book. A fast read, you won't wanna put it down. Hello, Amazon. Oh, that's a funny way to start, a review. Hello, Amazon. This is indeed my pleasure to write a review on Politically Correct Fairy. I loved this book. It was fun, happy, very clever, a fast read, interesting, and very, very entertaining. I took the book with me to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and read the book till 3 a.m. the evening I arrived. This book is 120 pages long. Check out the text of this thing. This is 2 words per page. This should have taken you maybe an hour to read at most. You stayed up until 3 a.m. You must have started reading it at 2 a.m., which is weird. That, or she just kept fucking rereading the book. She's like, dang, this is good. It's even funnier whenever I know what's gonna happen. I didn't want to put it down. It was a joy. Then I gave it to my mother, and she's reading it now and loving it, which is really the sign of something that's really funny. If you give it to your parents who are almost certainly very old, I can't imagine a young person buying a book and saying in the Amazon reviews, hello, Amazon. I can't imagine that this person could be less than 40, probably less than 50. His mother's probably 108 reading this book, and is wow, my senile old mother found this book very funny. Your senile old mother can't read. Unfortunately, I had to leave it with her because I flew back to the US last night, but I'm definitely going to be suggesting this charming book to anyone who will listen. I absolutely loved it. With a happy face, and then she just signs off her name. Next Christmas, she's gonna buy everybody a copy of Politically Correct Fairy Tales. And everybody's just gonna be oh wow, thanks. I can tell you were thinking about me when you got me this book called Politically Correct Fairy Tales. You will smile, laugh, and nod at the funny truth of our times. You will laugh, clap, and kick your feet at the fun, and nod. You'll nod. You'll laugh, clap, kick your feet, and nod at the funny truth of our times. We've seen a few 5-star reviews, but there's a 1-star, which really sticks out amongst this glowing praise for what is undoubtedly clever and witty satire. Please don't waste your money. There are better books out there of politically correct fairy tales. There are better books. You have a collection of books that are politically correct fairy tales. The author thinks he's been very funny by rewriting favorite children's stories, then ruining them with a lot of crude language. The potential was there, but the result isn't good reading. I wonder if she thought that politically correct fairy tales wasn't a parody. It is funny, the idea that this person got this book thinking that it was actually politically correct fairy tales, but not as funny as the idea that somebody was looking for a book of politically correct fairy tales. That or the other politically correct fairy tale parodies are just like way better. I should mention sort of the structure of this book, and basically the vague premise of it is that it's a retelling of various fairy tales, and it tells them in two different ways, conservative rebuttal tales. Now, the conservative rebuttal tales are not conservative in any meaningful way. At least I've skimmed through a little bit of it, and basically what I get from the story is basically the politically correct fairy tales are what you would expect, and the conservative rebuttal tales, they're just very offensive. Or, I mean, not like really actually offensive, but they just use a lot of crude language and are like graphic or gory, and just, they're just sort of like that. That's how the conservative rebuttal tales, I think, go. And so I really, it seems to me like it's just like some old guy who is like, this is gonna be good, and then he wrote a book, which is, I don't know, I do think that this is going to be the most enjoyable one to read, and I do think it's going to offer a lot of content. It's structured in such a way, since there are multiple fairy tales, I think it'll make a good video whenever I make a video on it specifically, going through it. But I have high hopes. I have high hopes for politically correct fairy tales. Okay, the next book we have that we're going to be looking at is The Elven Inquisition. And it says a woke fairy story. This one doesn't have any sort of thing on the back. It just has like some really shitty pixelated image for some reason. I don't know why. From the cover, you can kind of see like it's very clearly going to be like about like cancel culture. Look, they're burning somebody at a stake. They're calling it an inquisition. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear based on that this is going to be a book that focuses a lot on cancel culture. And thus, I do think that it's going to be a lot more like actually like conservative stuff within this book. Another thing I'd like to point out, the Elven Inquisition is very tiny, like dimension-wise. And the reason I think it's so tiny, because it has normal-sized text. The reason I think it's so tiny is to make the page count longer. The book is, in this form, about a little under 200 pages, but it would probably be like 120 if it was a full-size book, and it'd also be bigger, so like it being thinner would be more noticeable. So my assumption behind why the book is so tiny is specifically I think that the guy, Steve, our friend Steve, is insecure about having written so little. But this doesn't have as much on the outside as politically correct fairy tales did. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into what the Amazon page says about it. This is just a fucking wall. But I do think that it's actually one of the better reviews. So, wokeness, simplified and explained. If you are like me, then you probably have been shaking your head from time to time over the last few months saying, what exactly is wokeness? And what is happening to our country? Does it really matter? I'm trailing into like a racist Mexican accent. Can I do a racist? What percentage Hispanic do you have to be able to get away with doing a racist Hispanic accent? Can you do it at all? It would be offensive for somebody to ask me to do a racist Hispanic accent. Would it be offensive for me to just say a racist Hispanic accent? I don't know. That's really the question. Those are the questions that our founding fathers tried to answer at the foundation of this country, but I don't know. Does it really matter? Wiley Wiley's book makes learning about wokeness not only fun but educational. How would it not be educational? You're learning. It's going to be by definition educational. That's how that works. If you're learning about something, it's educating you. After reading it, you will understand the seriousness of the threats facing our country. Now I'm doing like a Ren sort of thing. Where is all this rioting and cancel culture going? It's going back to the racist Mexican thing. You might ask, why in the world would we ever pay reparations? Wiley shows you where wokeness is going as he walks you through a simple fairy story. Aren't fairies for little girls? Aren't fairies for little bitch girls who fucking grow into women and suck dick? Wouldn't it be gay for a guy to read? If I read a fairy story, wouldn't that make me gay? Absolutely not. Maybe. Oh, this just says maybe. So maybe that's the case. Maybe. Hey, maybe. Punchline. Gay. But this fairy story is, in a way, its own Trojan horse, brought to teach you about the terror and destruction happening in our country right now in the name of BLM and Antifa. Blue Lives Matter and Antifa? That's crazy. These days, unfortunately, it is anathema to have a conversation about racial issues. No, it's not. People specifically encourage talking about race and racial issues, and that's a thing that is generally, I would say, encouraged within popular media today. But Wiley's book enables you to have that discussion in the form of a story. Jesus, in his days, he used to teach people through parables. Dude, fucking Steve Wiley must really like this fucking review. It's comparing him to Jesus. Stories have always enabled us to learn lessons that we couldn't learn from straight dialogue. That's generally not true, but stories allow you to explore those ideas in a way, I'm certain everything that he's going to say in this story could be communicated through direct dialogue. It's just that communicating it through a story communicates it in a different way. That's really more the distinction. Wiley has sounded the alarm. From there, it's up to you to do something to stop the direction of our country. For like the French Revolution, the wokeness is not headed in a good direction. Hold on a sec. Is this person anti the French Revolution? Are they anti, getting rid of the monarchy? Is this are we dealing with a fucking monarchist? Or who is this person? Who is this I get that the French Revolution, they cut off some people's heads, obviously. In the end, our is the greatest nation in the world has ever known. Facts. Straight facts, bro. I don't know where you're from. From the United States. Well, that's weird. To sit idly by while wokeness shoves its beliefs down our throats is simply unacceptable. Read the Elven Inquisition. It only takes about 3 hours to read. And be amazed that a seemingly simple fairy story might be just what the country needs to wake it up from its slumber before it's too late. Well, I'm sold on the Elven Inquisition as a book that I'm going to read. Captures the frustration with political correctness, woke, and the cancel culture run rampant. The author pulls no punches in this fairy story. He is an equal opportunity offender. I bet that he's not. A large group of people that it's not going to be very offensive to at all, who agree with everything that he's saying. You will either love this book or absolutely hate it. Get this book and don't let it be, as in be the animal, the insect. Don't let it be culture canceled. What the fuck? Cancel? Don't let it be culture canceled. I culture cancel. I am culture canceling the Elven Inquisition. If there's one threat to society, it's cancel culture. There are a few other 5-star reviews naturally because it's such a good book. But now we're moving down to the 4-star. Dad with Kids says, bought more than one. Give to someone who needs to read it, some ... could really be helped by reading this. Is he giving these books to his children? I feel like dad with kids should not have had children. There is one 1-star review, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Don't waste your money on this. Another self-pub mess. Interesting premise, totally ruined execution. Very pedestrian and predictable prose. Okay, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up, okay? That sentence is so stupid. Saying pedestrian and predictable is it's basically the same fucking word, but you would have communicated that exact same idea by saying boring prose. And of course you use 3 P's, you fucking little literary, shut up. Maybe a good editor and several more drafts could have fixed it. Maybe if you just had a bunch of money, you could, it would be good. Maybe if you just had a bunch of money and several years to work on it, it would be good. No shit. No shit it would be better. No shit a self-published fucking book wouldn't be better if an editor were there to help. Kept waiting for something inventive and original, but it didn't happen. Why did you keep waiting for something inventive or original? I don't understand why you thought that was gonna happen. Plus, the title is misleading. There is nothing woke about this. Now, again, we've come across another person who is unironically, I think, searching for woke fairy tales. I think this person, legitimately, they wanted a woke fairy tale. And it's like, who the fuck is looking for this shit? Like, this person, because again, I feel like most of the people who would type woke fairy tale into Amazon, so now I'm just gonna be doing this part of the review over here. Is there a bug up there? I can't get it down, and I don't want it to fall on my head. So for the rest of I guess the review is now on this side of here. Like, I figure if somebody types in the term woke fairy tale into Amazon that they're looking for a parody, but I guess not. I guess some people are unironically looking for a woke fairy tale on Amazon. That was the Elven Inquisition, a woke fairy story. That brings us to the final book. Anti-Racist vs. Colorblind 2064 Woke Wars. And this cover is a fucking nightmare. This edit of there's like a guy with a gun and there's Abraham Lincoln in the background. And then there's just fucking shapes. There's just shapes and blurs. And that's the cover, and it's all pixelated because the cover is like a 240p or some shit like that. It's straight up wacky. The back sort of gives a basic summary of what's in the book. It's a dystopia future where everything is categorized by race, just like how the liberals want it. The back sort of gives a little bit of the impression that this is a sort of conservative guy who sees himself as a centrist. Guess what the guy looks like who made this? He looks exactly like who you'd think. Like, look at that guy. That's exactly who you think would write this book. Now, the thing about the reviews for this, they're all long and they're all very detailed. And the reason why that is the case is almost certainly because he sent a bunch of these he sent this book to a bunch of colleagues or something. Just some conservative writers or I don't know, college professors or something, and all of them wrote reviews for his book. And they're all very lengthy and they're all very boring. This book also has very big text inside, not very much text per page. Again, it's to make the book look like it's longer. This guy's not some old fucking doofus. He's like a fucking person who can write a book with a normal amount of text per page. But again, you know, if it has a bigger page count, if it has a bigger page count, it means that you're smarter. But holy shit, whenever I looked through this book, I dread reading this one the most, not because I think it's going to be the worst. I think it's going to be the most boring. I think it's just going to suck. I think it's just gonna be a grind, which sucks because the cover is so fantastic. It's really an unfortunate situation. Now, in the reviews, some people seem to catch on to the idea because it's very clear in like the summary for the book and some of the other reviews that this book is a very centrist-y book. It seems to value a lack of conflict because the basic premise is, it's 2064, everything's segregated by race because that's what the wokes want, and the main character is an Asian person, which Asians are on the bottom of the totem pole, I guess, and Mexicans are on the top, and they're also the majority population of the United States, which makes this seem like it's definitely going to be like a fucking like Nazi book, but I don't actually think that that's what he's going for. I think that he looked at a graph that had a trend on it and he was like, oh no, it'd be horrible. The dystopia, there's more Mexicans than there are white people, oh no. So this guy creates an organization called the Colorblinds to fight the anti-racists, but there's also racial nationalists. So that's another faction that I saw get brought up. And throughout the story, he learns that, guys, we can't let the things that we believe about the way that society ought to be run divide us, which is sort of silly. It's like, that's the same thing as being divided by race. But I guess we're getting into what the actual book will be about, not what the reviews and stuff surrounding it. So I guess we should really wrap it up. Oh, I meant to mention, a lot of the reviews clearly don't understand I think that's the point of the book, and a lot of the reviews definitely don't understand that. But I think it's time to wrap this up. In conclusion, this is a part 1 of a maybe 4-part series. And in the next part, I'm going to be talking about, I think Politically Correct Fairy Tales, and I'm going to be sort of reading through it, and we're just going to have a gay old time doing that. Hopefully, it's possible that there's just not enough meat on these books, but I think that there will be, at the very least, for Politically Correct Fairy Tales and the woke fairy story, the Elven Inquisition. I do worry about Woke Wars also because it's the longest, and because I think that the guy, I think it's going to be I think it's going to suck. I just think it's going to be miserable. One of the reviewers mentioned, like, history buffs will love this, and holy shit, like, I can't imagine anything more boring than a book written by, like, a history buff that, like, I would rather a book written by, like, I'd rather read a book written by, like, a Nazi history buff than a book written by a fucking centrist history buff. Like, a centrist history buff just sounds fucking miserable. It's not like being a history buff is inherently bad, but for a book like this, I think that being a history buff is gonna suck. I think it just means that the book is gonna be fucking boring, in the way that, like, a History Channel documentary, like, that's the sort of history buff shit that we're talking about here, not like a complex understanding of historical events and the context that led into them, and an understanding of the way that, like, structures in society affect each other and sort of push society in certain directions or whatever. Like, it's nothing interesting like that. It's nothing dynamic. It's just boring History Channel documentary history, which is fucking lame. And I feel like that's what this book is going to be. I feel like I basically understand and have gotten everything out of it based on that synopsis that I just gave that I got from one of the reviews, and that the fucking reading process is going to be fucking horrible. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be fun. Maybe it'll be awful, and it won't be horribly boring. But I have my doubts. We'll just have to see, I guess. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me if you, I don't know. Hopefully you guys are kind of interested in this. I hope so. That would be nice. I'm not just going to be making these, like, one after the other or anything like that. I do intend to, like, intersperse these between, like, other videos probably. But I don't know. Maybe I won't. It's really up to random chance, I guess. But like, comment, subscribe to my second channel. If you want to see me talk about more books, which it's weird. I'm not like a huge book guy or anything, but I don't know. There's just a couple of book related videos that I think I'm going to be putting onto my second channel pretty soon. So if you're interested at all in that, then probably check that out.